What up? What up? What's going on, nephews? Here we are for another segment of Ask Your Uncle. It's your Uncle Junior here. You know, I'm being blessed today by by a very old friend. You know, we go back many moons. By the
Sure.
name of Uncle Mike. How you doing, Uncle Mike? What's going on, bro?
I'm good, man. How you living, bro?
Hey, man. I'm just trying to make it, bro. Trying to make it.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Well, look, man, I always tell everybody, man, I don't waste too much time on the formalities. I kind of just dive right into the segment. And but in order for you to get more comfortable and for the nephews to get a little more comfortable with you, I just ask that you give a little, a little background. So it's kind of like, what was your upbringing like and where are you from?
Okay. I was born in a military family. I was in two branches of the military myself, the Air Force and the Army. I was born in Columbia, South Carolina, but because we were military, we bounced around a little bit. I took to IT or informational technology coming up out of high school. Pretty much been doing that ever since. And now I'm in Northern Virginia doing a lot of data center work for a couple of different contract companies. So I've been doing it for a long time. It pays the bills. If anybody's interested, I definitely can recommend it.
Okay. And you say Northern Virginia?
Yeah, close to IAD Airport, probably about 45 minutes west of DC.
Okay. And you say your childhood you spent most where?
I was born in Columbia, and I spent most of it in the South. I bounced around a little bit from South Carolina, North Carolina.
Yeah.
But then because, like I said, my parents are military, spent some time in Buffalo,
Okay.
San Diego,
Okay.
was Virginia when I was smaller,
Yeah.
and kind of mainly on the East Coast. Nothing overseas military wise, so just basically grew up in the South.
Right. Okay. And so with you doing IT now, was that always a dream or like what did you think that you was gonna be when you was younger?
I wasn't 100% sure growing up. I had two older brothers and a younger brother in the house. My mom was, raising us by herself. She had a grand dream that we would have like an engineering company or a firm, and she kind of wanted us all to go to school and get a different kind of discipleship, like mechanical, electrical, civil, that type of thing. So unfortunately, everybody else flamed out. I was the only brother to go to school and make the shit pop. So I mean, the money's good for me. We didn't get the family business, but I came out okay.
Yeah. Hey, hey, I hear that, man. I hear that. Hey, man. See, like you touched base with a lot of people, then, man. Like, was there anybody who kind of stood out the most as far as like took on that mentor role for you when you were young?
I tell you an interesting story, man, and I know it's been a little while since we connected. But I tell everybody who I meet now, you know who I tell them about?
What's that?
I tell them about you.
What are you talking about, man?
I tell them about you, dog. When we met in high school, man, you was the coolest dude that I knew. And I can't lie, growing up, I didn't have a lot of bread, man. The clothes was pretty shabby. And I think by the time I met you, that was probably maybe my second or third high school. I went to 4 high schools before I graduated. So you don't get a lot of time to make friends or plant roots and stuff, man. And I know we hadn't talked a whole lot since then because our lives have gone in different ways. But I tell people that there was this dude that looked like Stefan Urkel, man. he embodied that dude. He was wearing Spears before they was cool. He was wearing the button downs. He would sit with me at lunch. He took me under his wing. He knew all the shorties. Hey, I can't even fucking say no lie, man. I tell him about this cat look just like Stefan Urkel.
Yeah, that was the playbook back then, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, you put me back on that one, though. That's what's up. But no, man, obviously, you kind of said like you got your head on your shoulder. So it's like somebody, I felt there was a male presence that kind of like make sure that you didn't go left and right with your moves. You know what I mean?
See, growing up, because we bounced around a lot, it was a little bit tough. And I was kind of like the latchkey kid era where you just watched a lot of movies. And sometimes you kind of emulated that stuff. My parents divorced when I was really young. He wasn't really a major factor in my life like I would have liked. I got married twice. got divorced twice. And so, you know, as a young Black male, you do try and kind of put somebody else in that father figure role. Right. Unfortunately, the females that I was dealing with, they pops hated me. so that wasn't happening. You know, they look at you different when you with their little daughter. That's their baby girl. So unfortunately, man, a lot of it was just it was a self-driven desire to kind of to just get better than what my current circumstances were. Because like I said, we grew up, even though it was military, we didn't have a lot of money. My mom was really struggling to bring us together. She was doing her best. And so as I'm actually articulating it, I'd probably say that the motivating factor was for her to be able to lean on me when I got older. Lean on and to be able to lean on me in a way to where it wasn't like we was just getting by, we wasn't just making ends meet. You know, I wanted to be able to live my life like a rock star, and I wanted her to be able to live like that once I came of age to where I could take care of us both.
Yeah. Hey, that's what's up, bro. That's what's up. And like you say, that's motivation and that's drive, you know what I mean? And but you did harp on something I kind of want to double back on when you mentioned you know, we kind of grew up around that TV area where, you know, you did kind of just have to, you know, look at TV, you know, a lot, and you may see somebody that you like, man, that's a cool cat. So I wonder, was there ever like a famous, you know, Black actor or anybody that you kind of looked at, you know, I admired a bit, you know what I mean?
And you know, I grew up with Martin. So I always knew I was gonna have me a red bone when I got older or something like that.
Yeah, little
you know, Denzel. Yeah, exactly. Denzel Washington was always solid in all of his movies and stuff. I tell you, I was a big underdog movie fan or buff. So like all the Rockies, especially Rocky IV, you know, is my favorite joint. So to me, it didn't even matter culturally what they were, Black, white, Italian. You know, I kind of did take movies and supplement them in a way to where they was kind of like a faux father figure, somebody, you know, where there was a voice in my head similar to whatever else I was watching or growing up with to hopefully kind of keep me on the right track, because I kind of had to replace it since, you know, since mine wasn't there.
Yeah. And no, and I get that, and that's kind of made me want to ask another question concerning that, where it seemed as though like you had to grow up kind of fast, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, you know, with that, you know, I would ask, you know, a question like what distinguishes, you know, a young adolescent male, you know, from being an adult? Like, what's the difference? Like, when do you cross over? You know, what's that breaking point?
To be honest, I think it's just age in society, because you have a lot of young men that I think are ready to be mature, but society tells you have to hit certain benchmarks. Like you got to be 18 to do this, to do that. You got to be 21 to do this and do that.
Yeah.
You might not be able to get an apartment for your family because you're not old enough to sign the lease.
Right.
So, you know, I had two older brothers that are about 7-8 years older than me. So they were able to be up and out of the house before I was. So then it kind of fell on me to be the quote unquote man of the house. But I mean, by the time they were out, I was still in maybe middle school, you know, just getting to high school. So, you know, I had to learn about, you know, eviction notices and no food in the refrigerator and the car being repoed and, you know, balancing the budget to see if we could eat versus paying the bills and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get that. And so, so that shaped your framework as well. And like you said, all these benchmarks that you have to kind of, you know, like a checklist of things you got to do before you can qualify to call yourself an adult. You know, I think of things of that nature, but I also wonder, you know, I also wonder mainly about when we're talking about being an adult, right? And you know, how does a young man, what are they supposed to do as far as like handling money? How do you advise them on handling money?
I would say that those $20 shoes probably fit as comfortable as those $350 shoes. You know, once you get older, you really start to have a mind shift. You start to value things. I tell people all the time, something's only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it. If nobody was going to pay $400 for a pair of LeBrons or J's, they'd have to start charging less money. It's only because people are willing to pay that much that they can keep jacking the prices up. Same with cell phones. So it's like you begin to prioritize differently. You begin to feel like you might want to eat more than you want some designer clothes, That hoopty might be okay until you can afford the, the Lambos or the Raris or the Acuras or whatever, falls in your price range. So it becomes I guess a point in your life to where you kind of can look at the bigger picture, I would say.
Yeah. And let's double back a little bit about your childhood. Like, were you easy to give advice to, or were you kind of hard-headed? Like, because with you being having that grown man mentality at a young age, it's kind of like, people may not have been able to reach you, you know what I mean? Or they may have, talked down to you when they should have been talking to you, you know what I mean?
I think I'm probably got a similar personality now that as I do then. I tell everybody, listen, feel free to talk to me as if I don't know anything. Talk to me like I'm stupid. Now, at some point, I'll start to respond to your questions, and you will be able to figure out what my level of knowledge is. And so then you can kind of start to say, okay, I can hit him on a higher level now with some, with maybe some of these techniques or some of this wisdom, because the way this conversation is going, he sounds like he's been around the bush a few times, around the block. He knows what he's talking about. So I try to be humble in all circumstances, because it's that 1 minute where you think you know everything, and you fuck something up.
No, I feel you on that. And speaking of, making those mishaps and those missteps, like what's one piece of advice you wish someone had told you when you were younger that otherwise you had to learn a little later in life?
How important school is. When I was going to school, I kind of had an idea, because I didn't like school. I made good grades, and I kind of was able to coast a little bit. Like, I was able to get, a B minus, B plus without even studying. So I can only imagine how much better I would have been ahead of the game had I actually applied myself. You're only a kid for so long, and you're grown for a lot longer. And the problem is that you want to enjoy your childhood, but by the time you're done enjoying it, it's almost like you should have already kind of been overlapping your preparation for adulthood, which is why those kids that you look down on, you call them nerds, the ones you used to push around, they're the ones that get the good, SAT scores, they're getting into the good colleges. They're forming those networks so that, back then when you run into them 20 years later at the reunion and you're like, this dude blew up. I remember when he used to just study all the time. It was like, because there's something that clicks for one way or another, where they kind of like, they turn that switch and they start thinking about the future way before most people do.
Yeah. And so how would you advise kids on like their circle? Like, how do they navigate or distinguish, like, who's good to keep in your circle, who's not good to keep in your circle?
That could be tough, because sometimes you don't pick your friends. Your friends are the dudes that you ride the bus with, that you're on the team with, that live next door or above you. And, to be honest, sometimes them cats ain't shit, man. It's just, you get to be around him, and he's a cool dude, or he's funny, but he's also slinging rock, or he's got a gun in his shoe. And it's just like, man, I shouldn't hang out with this dude, but that's my boy. We've been going to school together for 10 years now. And so it can be tough to cut cats like that out. And it can be tough to look at somebody else, look into somebody else's life and be like, I feel like this cat has a good head on his shoulder. The main advice I can give, man, is try to have as a big a diverse group of friends, as you can. I know there's going to be some bias and bigotry on whether or not, now they're trans or gay or black, white, whatever. So, you can only do as much as you can be comfortable with. But at the same time, you want to be able to see the world through the eyes of as many people as you can, because you never know what that perspective will do for you.
Yeah, and I can dig that. And that's good advice, because at the end of the day, it's like sometimes these kids do get pigeonholed where they're the kids they went to elementary school with, they're constantly around them. They go through all the ages in the classes with them, and they think like, man, and they base that off the longevity of the friendship versus the strength of the relationship. You know what I mean? So I get where you come from on that.
Exactly.
And I would ask though, because you mentioned earlier about your mom had these great intentions of you guys kind of like going in business for yourself. What advice would you give a young man that was considering going into entrepreneurship, wanted to start his own brand of his own business and so forth?
I'd say it's probably not as easy as you think. But it can be as rewarding and worth it as you think. You know, I grew up with a lot of people who's going to school for business.
Right.
And my first question would be like, well, what is your business going to be? And they didn't have any idea. they were just going to school for business.
Yeah.
So what I could say is there's going to be a lot of people that tell you that, you know, your business is going to fail. There's going to be a lot of people that will be negative no matter what you tell them you're going to school for. Right. I grew up with somebody who said he wanted to raise horses. I laughed in his face. He said, what are you talking about, raising horses?
Yeah.
The thing is you got to do your research. You want to be smart in every move you make because you don't want to make moves twice. You want to go to school for business. You want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. What do you want to do? What kind of funding will you need? What's the longevity of this business? Is there somebody else who's doing it? Is there some kind of mentorship program? I think a lot of times people are afraid to admit things that they don't know, to ask for help. And so they blow all their credit cards. They spend too many years studying the wrong curriculum and only to realize that they could have gotten some good advice had they just been humble enough to ask somebody who was already doing it.
Yeah. And so what do you say to the kid that he's like, Uncle Mike, like, I don't really rock with the school thing, man. Like, I don't really want to do that. I just want to, I'm going to start working, what kind of trade jobs or things or skills that they might need to learn that's going to keep them afloat?
I would definitely say that you can make it without going to school. It'll be a little bit more difficult because corporate America, they value that degree on the wall. Yeah. And so you're going to be behind the 8 ball if you don't have it. And if you're, of another nationality that ain't white, you might also find yourself with that second stripe. Yeah. So, however, there are a ton of trades working in the data center world. Uh-huh. If you know anything about HVAC, HVAC, heating and air, you can make 6 figures. Wow. You go to school to be an electrician, a journeyman apprentice program, you can make 6 figures. Okay. So I know those are 2 of the main ones because they're kind of in my sphere as far as what I do. Right. But you just have to be dedicated. You have to be as dedicated to that craft as you would have been as dedicated to the degree. So you can't say, well, I don't care about school and then go half-ass go to a trade for 6 months. And then now you're bitching because you're not making 6 figures or you're not making as much money as you think you should.
Right. And is that the same energy you would ask them to keep? Like if kids say, well, hey, I'm a great running back, or I'm a great wide receiver. I think I want to be a pro athlete. You know what I mean? Like what kind of mentality should they have and how do you advise them?
Growing up on the block, we always going to the league, man. My cousin was a Golden Glove, old buddy could dunk. So I mean, you hate to rain on people's parade, but it all goes to that mentality as far as, well, how quickly do people mature? Because that mature mentality is always going to battle that never give up hope mentality. There's always a hoop dream that comes up where nobody thought that they would make the league. The problem is when you do the statistics and you look at how many people are actually in the league, how much luck is involved, what are the chances of you doing it? I would say if your lifelong dream is to try to make the league, I would say to try to do it. Now, at a certain point, you get to a certain age where you're just like, you need to have a backup plan. Yeah. So I would say if your dream is to be a professional sports player, then follow it. But you can't follow it blindly. You definitely have to hedge your bets because you might have people depending on you. Your parents. You might have an old lady. You might have children. Yeah. You need a backup plan.
Yeah, yeah. And I like how you said that about you might have people depending on you. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is I think. I wonder sometimes, are these kids prepared to embark into manhood? Like the only reason I say that is because of rejection, right? It's not something that you read about, you really, it's a crash course in life, and when you go through rejections, like for instance, how would you advise a kid to get rejected from a woman?
I'd say there's always another one.
yeah.
I would say that's a tricky thing for a man because I grew up with the Hey Ma era, the gold teeth era, the chicks loving the roughneck, and what slowly has happened is as you get older, you run into those chicks again, and they got 2 or 3 kids. you know, done probably been arrested and had their baby daddies arrested. They got restraining orders out their ass. And you're like, see, you should have let me take you to the movies back in 05, you know?
Could have been good.
All I can say to that, to the young kid, man, is that everybody's been rejected by a woman before. Everybody's been told no before. You approach a woman with respect. Right. She may or may not reject you with that equal respect, and then you pick up your feelings and you move on, man. You don't got to call them out the name. You don't got to be disrespectful. Just approach her respectfully, man. It's either a yes or no. That's the worst that's gonna come out of that, and you move on either with the number or on to the next one.
Yeah. And is it the same like with the job? Like he didn't get the job he wanted. You know, he thought he was gonna get that. You know, most kids they thinking, man, they come out of high school, they ready to work. They think they're gonna get the first job paying the most money. You know what I mean?
Exactly. What a little tip I like to do is when I'm applying, when I feel like I want to apply to a job or I want to get into a particular field, what I do is start looking at job postings and work backwards from what the requirements are. Right. So say I'm in data centers right now, but say I want to do something with like at server administration or something specified. What I'd start doing right now is looking up jobs that were hiring for what I wanted. And then what I'd start doing was try to get some certifications in those fields. So what you do is you work, you plan ahead, while you're in school, while you're in college, if there's internships, if there's, just pop into some of these places old fashioned style and say, hey, look, can I come by and fucking sweep the floors? Can I come by and shadow somebody? Is it paid? Is it not paid? I mean, so a lot of times people, as soon as they say free or yeah, you can do it, but we can't pay you, then it turns them off.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what you're saying is just stay persistent and keep it moving.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, we just like that girl, we've all got that call, or are you going to the interview and you didn't get the call? And then it pissed you off even more because you're like, well, at least they could have done this call and said that I didn't get it. But I mean, that's corporate America, man.
Yeah. And I feel that. But about that girl though, like, all right, so I mean, man, we out here, bro. They got the Instagram model, they got the Snapchat. I mean, they doing the silhouette challenge, you know what I'm saying? And
I seen it. I seen one or two.
I know, right? I seen a few of them, bro. I was like, hello. But you know what I'm saying? But no, real talk though. I'm concerned, man. I'm like, man, what qualities should these young men be looking for in a mate? Because they're so distracted by what's easily available. You know what I mean?
It's a make-believe world right now. And to be quite honest, one of the challenges, because I don't have TikTok. I got an Instagram that I barely post on, and a Facebook I post even less on. But I mean, I'm old head.
Right.
The best thing I can tell these young cats is to look at that Bust It Down challenge. Right. If there was ever a challenge that should really be eye-opening, a lot of those women look 180 degrees different than what they look like once they put that face full of makeup on, once they put that too tight dress on, once they put those fake nails on. And what you should pay more attention to is the before, because that's who you marrying, that's who you wifing, that's who you gonna wake up to looking at. And the chick afterwards, that's gonna be every other Friday night, or probably when she gets mad at you and she going out with her homegirl. So you can see what you missed.
Like that's the representative.
That's her lawyer going out the door. But you living with the client and the defendant 24/7. So all I can say, man, is get you a good woman with a good head on her shoulders, man. And it's you can't put a price tag on peace in your home. And Belle Biv DeVoe and all them boys said it best, man. You can't trust a big butt and a smile, man. It'll get you every time. Trust me, I've been burnt more than one.
No, that's all right. That's all right. And I do wanna go back when you were talking about respect, right? So it seems as though it's a big discord between respect for our elders, right? So like we grew up with that whole like, face value, you show them respect, you know what I mean? But it's often said that kids don't feel respected by adults, you know what I mean? And so my thoughts is like, do you see that as discord? And if so, like, is it like, whose fault is that?
Well, I grew up hearing respect was a two-way street. Okay. So what happens is you've got a lot of adults looking at kids in a kid's place, but not giving them still enough respect and leeway to be more than a kid. And then you have a lot of kids feeling like, I'm due at least a little bit of respect. So you got the kid wanting some respect, whether he may or may not be deserving. And then you've got the adult who sometimes sits on a pedestal because he's been there, he's done that, he's got the age and the wisdom. And so he might be talking down. So a lot of times it's more like meeting them in the middle, giving that kid, that younger dude, that younger fella a little bit more respect. And then that younger dude recognizing that he's talking to somebody that he might be able to learn something from and being willing to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I get what you're saying, where, you're saying you meet them where they at, right? So if the kid is talking sideways, you don't bite and go sideways with them. You kind of bring them back, right?
Exactly. Well, right. I mean, as the older person, right. You're supposed to be more experienced to navigate that.
Right. But the kid, like, they all full of, emotions, and it's another thing, like, how do they handle that emotion? Like, mental health is not something that's talked in the Black community as often as it should. Maybe now a little bit more so than ever, but times before it never really was a conversation. So, like, how would you advise these kids to handle their frustrations and handle that chip on their shoulder?
Sometimes it's all about how you channel it. And growing up, for me, I always like to be in the gym. Mm-hmm. I would go to the gym if I was happy, if I was sad, if I was mad, if I was frustrated, if I was celebrating something. I always need to be in there to clear my head. Yeah. Now, it wouldn't mean that I wouldn't get a drink or two every now and again. Right. But you've got to be self-accountable for, can you have one or two and still go to work the next morning? Mm-hmm. Can you, I don't do drugs or smoke, but can you do, your drug of choice and still be functional and do what you got to do? So a lot of times it's about channeling it, because a lot of people will have an addictive personality and you can't just hit a line of coke on Friday and be straight. Now you're hooked. You can't just wake and bake and smoke joints all day long without it having some kind of effect on you, psychologically or physically or mentally. So it's all about figuring out how to best channel that rage and frustration. And if you don't know how, then maybe gravitating towards that mentor, or there's always somebody who you feel like is probably in your life that you could say something to. The problem is that a lot of times that person isn't paying attention, that you're kind of putting that olive branch out. You're asking for help. They may be too busy or just not really, reading the signs that, this kid he's actually wanting something from me, and I need to slow down and see what he's after.
Yeah, no, I dig that. And the only reason I brought it up is because of, like, when we spoke about, respect and everything like that, it's a lot of tension, and this as well as anyone, that, our interactions with the police are not great, right? Right. And so, the concern now is for the kids. Like, what do you advise a young man that's interacting with a police officer? Like, how should they handle themselves and things of that nature?
I don't have any kids, so I haven't had to have that talk yet. And thankfully, other than some speeding tickets, I haven't been in any great danger, I felt like. But, every time you get pulled over, you never know. Yeah. What the best thing my mom has told me and everybody else has told me is that you want to live to see another day and handle that transaction in court. The worst thing you can do is resist. Worst thing you can do is have them drawing the weapon out on you. For one, if you don't have anything to hide, then that's not saying let the police trample on your rights, because you do have rights. The thing is know your rights before you talk out your ass saying you do. Saying that you don't have to pull over, that isn't 100% true. No. Saying that they can't order you out of the car isn't 100% true. If you feel like your rights are being violated, definitely know your rights well enough to where you can let them violate your rights, because unfortunately, sometimes you have to. Right. In order to survive that encounter, you do have to allow your rights to be violated. Not necessarily you as a man, but some of your rights might need to be violated. So that when you go to court, then you can have proof. Now, you got cops protecting cops, lawyers and judges protecting lawyers. So it's way easier said than done. And when a man has, is calling on your name, maybe being disrespectful and has a gun to your face, it's definitely hard to restrain that. Yeah. But I think far too many times we watch too many movies, see too many World Star videos, and assume we know our rights, and then we compound the issue because we don't. And we may or may not have already been breaking the law. Right. Now we've compounded it thinking we know our rights and are breaking the law even more. And then that's what makes it a gray area where the cop was like, well, you almost could have gotten free, but you fucked this part up because you didn't know enough not to do that.
Yeah. yeah. And yeah, you're right. I mean, in the day, but where do they find that information though? Like, how do they learn about their rights? Where do they go? What do they look for? How do you Google that?
Well, I mean, short of being a lawyer, you gotta get out there and do your research. I don't know if these kids still go to the library or not, but Google, basically you can find anything on Google, but that's the problem. It's like Wikipedia. You can find anything good on Google, but you can find a lot of misinformation on Google. So a lot of times you want to make sure that, you can go to any of these colleges' websites, any of these .edus, go to any of the government websites. There's going to be state and local websites that outline your Bill of Rights, so to speak, and what you can or can't do. I wouldn't necessarily be on Ask Jeeves and Wikipedia for what your rights are when you get pulled over, if they still running Ask Jeeves. But
you showed your age on that.
I was about to say, you might want to go to an incredible website, brother. Ask Jeeves got me out of a lot of test questions back in the
day. Yeah. I feel you on that, man. Hey, I feel you on that. But yeah, bro, like I say, no, I really do appreciate you taking the time out, man. I know I'm running short on my time, and I just I wanted to make sure that I got enough questions that answered, but I do have several more, and I want to know if you're comfortable to come back and kind of keep the conversation going.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm usually at work in the mornings, but around this time, whenever it's cool for you, just let me know. Definitely.
Cool. And like always, I just want to give you the opportunity, man, to say anything, any closing statements, anything you want a nephew to know or hear. I just want to give you that time to say that.
I don't know who will or won't hear this in the future, man. I want you to know that the world can be as big as you want it to be, but it can also be as small as you need it to be, man. There can be a lot of frustrations out there, and sometimes you do need to block out those outside frustrations and just stay focused. If you're hurting, if you got mental issues, if you've got depression, if you just have a question, be humble enough to ask. Find somebody older, reach out to somebody, whether it's the church, at the school. There are people that will listen. Don't stop until you find somebody.
That's what's up. Wise words from a wise man. All right, Uncle Mike. Hey, bro, as always, man, it's been a blast, man. And I thank you again for taking time out your day just to come by and drop some knowledge for these kids. And hopefully one of them benefits from it. But like I said, bro, I'm definitely want to have you back on another time in a few weeks, and we can just continue the conversation.
No doubt, man. I appreciate it.
All right, bro. Well, I'm gonna let you get out of your life, man. We're gonna link up, and I'm just gonna be talking with you soon.
All right, man. Take it easy, bro.
All right, bro. Later.